Welcome to the Naked Peaches. I'm Anna.
I'm Taylor.
It's Tuesday.
Yay! So how are you feeling now that you're not a single parent anymore?
Having Gavin back is life-changing. I am not meant for the solo parenting life.
Yeah.
So it's been great.
Yeah.
Yeah, truly lovely.
Good. I'm happy for you.
Thank you. I'm so happy too. Today I was dropping her off at daycare, and one of the other daycare moms was saying that she's doing solo parenting right now, and we were both just talking about how it's
impossible to go to the bathroom.
It's just anything, literally anything. It's like so hard to do. And I just was staying up so late because it's like I'd put her down and then I would get the stuff ready for the next day, like clean the house, edit photos.
Always.
All of a sudden it's like midnight every night, and then I'm like waking up at 6. So I'm sleeping a little bit more now, which
I'm
is
so
great.
happy for you.
Thank you. Yeah. And then we just celebrated her birthday, which was also really exciting.
I love the little photo collage that you posted with like every month of her life.
You.
It's crazy how much she's changed.
I know, it's so nuts. She was such a little chunk baby, and now she's like a little human.
I know. She's a person now.
It's so crazy. I'm not very emotional, you know this about me. Like, it's just super bittersweet. Like, I don't know. It's been like really exciting, and I also don't, like, I'm not looking back at it being like, I want to go back, because I really like where she's at right now and how much, like, just like her personality is so much bigger and we can communicate more and all these things, and like, I'm excited for her to keep growing up. But then I like look at these photos and I'm like, you were so small. You're like a little loaf of bread, and now look at you.
I know. I feel like as someone who's not a parent, I feel like I observe from other people that like, you really, like, parenting really makes you, like, kind of grasp the passage of time more. Like, it's just, like, you're just watching them grow up, and, like, you know, everything they do, you're like, this could be the last time, you know? It's just, like, seems so sad.
I know. And it's, like, I think it's also, like, our birthdays are right around the same time, and I always get reflective on my birthday anyway, but now it's, like, extra, and then also just thinking back to, like, this time last year, how I was and what I was like thinking and feeling and whatever, and then like everything that's happened this last year, it's like, it's just been nuts.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that being a mom has made you soft.
I know. Finally, I needed to like soften up a little bit. Gavin's like, thank God this ice queen is like thawing a little.
My update for the week is much less cute.
Okay.
As you know, I have done my taxes, and look, I don't know if anybody else has ever done taxes before, but it was a rude awakening for me. It was a slap in the face from reality when I did my taxes, and I have to change some things. So I'm on a budget. You know, Colin and I have some financial goals that we're trying to save for, and I really got to tighten it up. So I'm cutting things out of my life that I have been spending way too much money on, and it's hard. It's really hard.
What are some of the things that are leaving you right now?
Okay, so I'm canceling my pole membership. Tragic.
Really, really sad.
I know. I'm gonna try and buy a pole for the house though, because it's like, you can buy a used pole for literally like half the cost of like what a month of pole membership is. So it's like, obviously that's the better deal. I'm canceling my Newly subscription. Absolutely tragic.
R.I.P.
I know. Say goodbye to me having cute outfits.
It's gonna come back eventually though, right?
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah.
Once we get things straightened out with the IRS.
Yeah. So it's really the IRS's fault is why you can't have cute clothes now.
Fuck the IRS, dude. And honestly, like, this whole thing of being like, you have to do your taxes and you have to figure out how much you owe, even though we know it's literally such a scam. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
If you are not just like a W-2 employee where everything is like very straightforward, it's like such a fucking nightmare to do taxes. It's literally a crime. It should be a crime to have to do your taxes.
I agree. I also did not have a very good tax time this year. And yeah, it's really fucking sucks when you're like trying to do it as a, you know, just a little LLC trying to do your taxes. It's also interesting because, you know, I'm not going to get too political here, but like America in general, we really frame it as like the land of really helping the small businesses, you know, and then you start to do taxes and there's like a lot of ways that you really get screwed over.
You find out that America does not give a fuck about small businesses. And
it's like you do get some benefits, obviously, like you can get some deductions, but it's like you have to be like a wizard or have like a big enough business to hire a wizard, you know?
You have to be a scam artist.
Yes. Yes. So some of it's my fault. I should have been paying the quarterly taxes, but a lot of it isn't my fault, and it's frustrating.
It's not our fault, okay? It's not. Why is Naked Peach Boudoir paying more in taxes than Jeff Bezos? That's my question. Like, it's not okay.
It's not okay. It's not okay.
Okay, we probably just lost a bunch of listeners who like
they're like, we're fine with our
don't
W-2s.
share our opinions. Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean,
all right, so Poll and Newly.
Yeah, Poll and Newly, I'm saying goodbye to potentially Botox.
Sounds like we might need to get some sponsorships.
Yeah. And I have referred a lot of people to my Botox place, so maybe we can get them to sponsor the pod.
We can work on that.
Yeah. Also, just cutting out shopping. When I tell you I was shocked by the amount of money I was spending on just random shopping, like I'm talking ordering fake tulips from Amazon for no reason, you know? Ordering whatever claw clip catches my eye, like ordering the next beauty product that I see on TikTok marketed to me that actually doesn't work for my skin. Just like buying shit constantly. Like there are months where like I spent more on shopping than I did on my half of the mortgage. It's psychotic. Like I went through like everything I'd spent last year and I have a lot of regrets.
You know those people that do like no buy months or like no buy years? I'm always so impressed with the people that can do like an entire year of like no buy, and
I could never.
But it is so crazy how like just the little impulse purchases really add up.
They do. Yeah. When you're not like checking yourself, it's scary.
You wreck yourself.
You wreck yourself. And I wrecked myself.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is cool. Maybe we can be a little bit like, we can now have this podcast be about
this is a budgeting podcast now.
We love fintech. We both come from fintech, so this is a great new path for us. I love this.
We're returning to our roots of working in fintech and, you know, thinking about money all the time.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, Posse, if you're bored with this conversation, but if everyone else has their shit together with the IRS, congrats.
They don't. They don't.
I think we should intro our guest.
Yes, I think so
because that's what I'm really excited about today.
Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you. So excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
We're so excited to have you. Melissa has been, first of all, before we talk about what she does as a career, we should just say that she is our perhaps number one VIP client of all time.
She is the queen of Naked Peach. Yes. Melissa has done 3 shoots with us. Mm-hmm. She is gorgeous. She is a bendy queen. Her booty is iconic. It has broken the Naked Peach internet.
It has. Instagram could not handle Melissa's ass.
Yes, it's too hot. It's been really fun to like, not only have we gotten to like shoot you, but like because we've known each other now for like it's been like a year and a half or so?
It's been closer to two.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because this summer would be
it'll be 3 in summer.
That's right.
Wow.
Oh my god. So it's just been fun because we like get to see each other for a few months and hang out. And we love you. You're iconic at Naked Peach.
Yeah. I love you guys. You guys are awesome.
You're our favorite, and you're also a physical therapist.
Yes.
Which is a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. Every time we've ever done a shoot with you, I feel like you're just like giving us pointers about things we need to do. So I feel like we're so excited to bring your knowledge to the Peach Posse.
More than excited to bring it too.
Yeah.
I think we should just start with like giving just like an overview of like your day to day, and also like you say that you're not like a typical PT.
Yeah.
Tell us more.
Okay, so I have been a PT for almost 16 years now. So I graduated back in 2007. But about 8 years ago is really when I wanted to kind of change my direction of what I was doing. I became a PT to help people. Like that was really what I was passionate about. I loved learning about the body. I was an athlete growing up. And so I went searching for what I was missing basically in my practice. And I wanted to be able to do more hands-on type work, and so I started taking classes. My first class was a low back pain and pelvis class, and I was like, who has not experienced low back pain, or who is not going to experience low back pain in their life? Mm-hmm. Basically probably 0 people, right? And so I was like, great, because I knew what I was doing wasn't necessarily working or helping most people. I took that class first, and then I was in it. And so what was different about this type of class was they used more osteopathic type techniques, which are actually older techniques. Osteopaths used to do those more before they practiced more like MDs, or what we know as a regular primary care physicians.
Wait, what's an osteopath?
Yeah, so doctor of osteopaths. So if you go to Canada and Europe, like you'll see more osteopathic type doctors, and maybe they do more hands-on techniques, but that's how doctors used to practice, like long time ago, right? So they more look at the whole body and all the systems involved instead of really just focusing on the symptom that you're experiencing. So I look at it, they're trying to find the root cause of your symptoms versus just treating the symptom. So looking at the overall whole body more.
Okay,
Cool.
So-
I feel like that's what we all need. Like, I feel like in general, like Western medicine, it's all about just like, here's a prescription, go away.
Yeah. So we're treating the symptom, but we're not going back to what's actually causing the symptom, right?
Yeah.
So I started taking these classes back then, and I've been taking them since, and that really just rerouted what I wanted to do. And so then being able to help people with your hands is really, really a gift. I'd never had that kind of mentorship before through school. I never had that person that was like, this is how we do this is what we do, you know? So it was really cool to be able to do that. And then I've kind of just been working and developing that technique for the last 8 years. So I consider myself more almost like in the body worker realm versus like this traditional PT route, where as now, a lot of times when you go to traditional PT outpatient in particular, right, it's exercise prescription and things like that, a lot more stretching and strengthening. Where we come in is we get the body actually prepped to do those things and make sure things are lined up and ready to do that before doing those things. So it's just a little, it's like that steps being missed a little bit. So I'm adding that in.
Is it almost like doing like a chiropractic adjustment and then doing like the strengthening?
So it's a lot more gentle than a lot of chiropractor manipulations. So they tend to be more high velocity, and there are some more gentle techniques, like some chiropractors use gentler techniques. The way I make adjustments is using the client's muscles to correct the joint alignment. So it's called muscle energy technique. So that tends to be a lot more gentle than what like a high velocity manipulation would be, and it's more interactive with the client because they're engaging their muscles to correct that.
this is fascinating.
Yeah. Maybe you can give us a live demo.
Yeah. Oh, I think I have a table in my car. I can go.
Oh my God, yes. This will be great content.
Yeah, right?
So yeah.
I actually didn't know that was part of what you did.
Yeah. I would say the other part that people really don't realize that I do is like I can treat nervous system. So are you guys familiar with parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system? Like, so fight
I've
and
heard
flight,
it in a
right?
TikTok,
Yeah.
but I don't know which
Same.
is which.
So basically fight or flight, right? So as your sympathetic gets ramped up, you're more in a fight or flight type of mode. So you're all amped and stressed up. So I can do some techniques to help dampen that sympathetic and bring that back down. And I look at it, it's kind of like a dial. I can like dial the nervous system down a little bit so that you can regulate better. And so, during stressful times, people don't realize that's something I can do. Everybody talks about, oh, I'm going to go get a massage. I'm so stressed out. I'm going to have them rub my muscles and I, relax. And I'm like, okay, massage is great. Yes. And that has its place too. But if we can dial your nervous system back, then it's almost like resetting you and you can get up and be at a better level to go about your day to day. Does that make sense?
How often can you do this to somebody? Like, can someone come weekly and just get less
every
stressed
day.
out?
So, it kind of depends on how well you are regulating yourself, right?
Yeah.
And especially moms, like I treat so many women, right? Most of my population that I treat is women, and especially as moms, like that just adds a whole nother level of stress to it, right? Business owner, there's just all these levels. So frequency wise, I see most people depending on their circumstances, right? If they have a more acute type thing going on, I might see them once a week or every other week for a few weeks, and then it just gets spread out more to where they need it. So that could be 6 weeks, it could be 8 weeks, depending on their lifestyle.
I have never heard of this before, and I'm on
Can you
board.
reset Anna's nervous system today?
I can.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Wow,
This is so
just
exciting.
The thought of leaving here with no stress day, like it's gonna be. I have a full day of meetings and like just have no stress about that. Great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I love that. Well, that kind of leads us into one of the things we wanted to ask you about, which is, can you tell us about like what are the sort of ailments and things that happen to a lot of women as they age that like you focus on and that you can help with?
Yeah. So I feel like there's different categories really, right? As you treat people, you're able to kind of get different groups to relate to one another and what's going to help each group, right? So if you have people that are more sedentary, working at their desk and things like that, anybody that works at a desk really, it's only a matter of time really till they end up with neck, back, shoulder stuff typically is the most common things I see with that population. And so for them, the foam roller is literally a saving grace. Like, you guys are familiar with the longer cylinder foam rollers, right?
Yeah, I have one.
I have one
Yeah.
too.
So almost anybody would literally benefit from laying on that along their spine with their knees bent, their head supported, so your butt and your head are on it, and your arms stretched out to like open up your chest. So postpartum moms that are breastfeeding, like, because it helps the thoracics and then the chest open up. It makes this huge difference for posture for people that sit at a desk.
Oh.
So it can be a game changer for people, that and desk setup. So
How long should you lay like that?
I would say about 5 minutes to start, maybe
Yeah.
progressing to about 10. I wouldn't do it for longer than 10 minutes max, and it wouldn't have to be that much all the time. I would say 5 to 10 minutes most days.
I'm going to try it as soon as you leave.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I need a new foam roller because I don't think mine's long enough to support my neck and my butt.
Yeah, it needs to be, I think they're about 36 inches or so, the longer ones, because they have the short
Okay.
ones too. That's probably what I tell people to do the most.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to break our no-buy to buy new foam rollers.
We are 5 minutes into this podcast.
I support that.
5 minutes in, we're already shopping.
Yeah. So I see that a lot, right? People that work at their desk, their body can adapt to that for so long, and then it gets to a point where it's like, yeah, I don't like doing that anymore. You need to get up and walk more. You need to drink more water. You need to lay on your foam roller. And then I can continue to do this. But I would say that women, probably 30 to 35-ish. Men are a little bit behind on that sometimes. They don't start coming in until they're really falling apart usually, and that's maybe closer to 50, 55. And truthfully, the longer you wait, usually the longer it takes to get better. So my piece of advice is, if you feel like you have something going on, like, get it checked out sooner rather than later, because it's just that much longer and harder to correct it the longer you wait. So I see a lot of that. I would say it's spring. So a lot of people start gardening, and then I always get the people in the spring that are like, I'm going to start running now. I'm just like,
And then they immediately get injured.
and then they immediately get injured. Or maybe they make it, or maybe they do really good for like 2 weeks or something, and then they're like, oh, they start getting shin splints, or, you know, something happens because they didn't ramp up to it properly or make sure that things are moving properly before they do that. So in the springtime, I see a lot of those people that they're going to start running now, or the gardening people. Because they go out and garden for like 6 hours because they're all excited to be in their garden, which is great, but we need to like ease in and break it up and change positions and make sure things are moving before we do those things. Like, when you think about it that way, you're like, oh yeah, that makes pretty good
Totally
sense.
makes sense. Yeah.
Right?
You will not catch me running, but I am really interested in starting a garden. So this is like, I'm taking this to heart. If I start a garden, I'm going to start small. I will not be hunched over.
Good.
Like a little hobbit out there all day.
No.
And then you have to Theragun afterwards.
Yes. Yeah. What's your opinion on the Theragun?
I think there's a place for it. I think it can definitely be overused. I don't recommend using it on like the upper trap area.
Really? That's like the number one place I like to use it because it feels so good.
It does feel good at the moment, but the upper traps are actually innervated by a cranial nerve, so there's direct connection from your brain to your upper traps, which is why people that are really stressed out always complain of tension in their traps. It's because of the brain stress. That's where it's living, is in their upper traps.
Am I like scrambling my brain when I use the Theragun on my traps?
So your brain is getting that information, and it can misinterpret that and it can cause headaches. So I don't know if anybody's ever had like a deep massage in their upper traps, if you get like a really deep massage. So I've experienced that, and once I learned that that was what I was getting I would get headaches after that, or I would get tighter. Actually, it feels good at the moment, but then like the next day it would actually be tighter, or I would have a headache. I knew that, and once I made that connection, I was just like, oh, that makes so much sense.
My mind is blown right now. Wait, so what are you supposed to do? Like, can you do anything about it?
So manage stress.
Not possible.
So we need some strategies to manage stress. Everybody needs that right now, right? Like, gotta find a way. And then stretching the neck, things like that.
That is so interesting.
I know. Taylor is the number one fan girl of the Theragun.
I'm using it on my traps every night.
Well, and if you don't get headaches, that's good. And
I do get headaches.
Okay, well, then there's probably your problem. But like, But there are, there are areas I would say like glutes, legs, there are great places to use it as long as it's not overused.
Yeah. What about lower back?
I would say lower back's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because there's that one spot you have.
I have this one spot in my lower back that's like nothing can touch it. Like I can, unless I like stick my knuckle in there as deep as it goes into my back. And even then, it's like really hurts my finger. The Theragun is the only thing that can reach this one spot.
You'll have to show me where that is.
Yeah, I will. I'm curious for your opinion on it.
You like that.
Yeah. You are my primary care doctor.
I cannot prescribe medication. Disclaimer. I would say the teenagers that I see are playing sports like tennis, soccer, getting into rugby, right? Like they're getting into these sports, but their bodies aren't being prepared to do those sports. So they're not strength training either at all or in a way that to support their sport. So I feel like that's an area just where overall knowledge is lacking to get them in that place to do that, because unless that athlete really takes that on and owns that of that I want to be strong for my sport, then it's not happening. And if they're a really good athlete and then they end up going on to college athletics, their bodies are not prepared for that, because then they are having to strength train, but they haven't had that prep leading up to that point. So then there's a lot more injuries involved, especially with like the way our world is now. Like a lot of kids are on their devices and aren't playing as much and moving around as much. I was in a class and somebody was saying a football coach had asked, kids are getting injured every football game, right? Whereas, before it'd be one here and there, and now it's like every game, and it's because kids are not moving around as much and playing as much. So we need to be encouraging that, and then also strength training for their sport to kind of counteract all of that inactivity. But I think getting athletes in a position to be successful and making sure their body is prepared for that sport is really, really important.
And is that like primarily weight training?
They need to be strength training. A lot of sports obviously involve a lot, conditioning and speed work and things like that too. But I feel like the strength training is where people kind of, they don't get that part in or prioritize it as much. And then that's where it eventually leads to injuries, because the muscles just aren't built strong enough to withstand the forces that they're putting on their body.
I've even noticed that with pole. Like I follow this Instagram account called the Pole Physio, and they make all these recommendations for like strength training you should do to like improve your ability to do things on the pole. And I'm always like, I should be going to the gym and lifting weights, but I really don't want to. I'd rather do a dance class.
Yeah. That's your activity of choice, right? Yeah. You love this. But like, okay, if you were to become a professional pole dancer, right? Then maybe you'd be more motivated to add that strength training, but doing that strength training will help you do cooler tricks too when you're pole dancing, right? So sometimes there's motivation there. Like, okay, even if I do a little bit of this could help me do, these things here. So sometimes it's a matter of like finding a way to make it motivating.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Not everybody loves strength training, but I feel like this is a good segue. So women, as we age, after 40, we start losing muscle mass, right? A lot of the population knows that, a lot doesn't. But that's why strength training, particularly in women after 40, because if we don't, it's a downward spiral, really, if you're continuing to lose muscle mass, because then you get to your 60s and you're unsteady on your feet and you start falling. And if you're osteoporotic, then you're breaking your bone. Like, it's a bad slope to go down. So getting into it and learning to find a way, whatever way that is, to enjoy it. Like, whether that's because you feel stronger when you do it, because you feel healthy when you do it. I've been lifting weights since I was 15. So
wow.
Or going on 15, because I played soccer in high school. And I knew that if I lifted weights, I was going to be a better soccer player and I was less likely to get hurt. So I've been doing that forever, it feels like, right? And I feel like if people can find what makes them feel good doing it, then do it that way, whatever that looks like, in a way that's not going to hurt you. I feel like that's the other thing, is people don't know where to start. They're like, okay, I have gone to the gym, I've hurt myself before because I've just gone in and done whatever, right? Or I don't know what I'm doing and I don't feel comfortable And so then they're just like, well, I'm not going to do that. So I think it's finding somebody that can teach you how to do it in a way that's not going to hurt your body. Then there's, okay, well, how do you do that? And there's a lot of questions to ask. So I've been, thinking a lot about trainers. 'Cause I'd love to work with a trainer, and I have one that I'm actually kind of teaching right now some things, and he's a brand new trainer, and so I've kind of coached him on questions to ask. So some questions your trainer should be asking would be, what are your stress levels like? How much food are you eating? Have you weight trained and got injured before? So they kind of have a general idea, because if you are already like high strung, stressed out, like, and not eating much, we cannot add to your stress to your body, right? Does that makes good sense?
Yeah.
Like, I've been there, and when you do that, your body just basically rebels and is like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore.
Okay, interesting. So if you're like on the sort of like path that probably a lot of women are, of like, I'm gonna cut calories and exercise more, eat less calories than I burn, and then you add weight training, you're gonna injure yourself.
Potentially, you're going to continue to basically eat up your muscle in your body because you don't have enough calories to build the muscle. So something I learned about last year is called reverse dieting. I had also been one of those people. I was in a calorie deficit for longer than I could remember. My hunger hormones were basically not informing me properly, so I didn't really get hungry, but it's not because I was eating enough food. It's because they were basically so dampened down that I wasn't getting the proper cues, because I tried intuitive eating, right? Like, I'll just eat when I'm hungry. Well, I'm not hungry, so I was continuing to not eat enough. So I basically I got a coach, and I did 2 calls with her before I said I would work with her, and she's like, the first thing we're going to do is reverse diet you, which I had never heard of. And I've talked to some other people about it, and they're like, reverse dieting, what's that? It's like, okay, we have to come out of this calorie deficit you've been in for so long and figure out where your maintenance level of calories is. Like, where do you sustain your body weight? So yes, you would probably gain a little bit, but where does that plateau? And then that is your maintenance number of calories. And then you can go in and out of deficit from there, but you don't go into deficit and live in deficit.
So, which I feel like most of us have probably been doing.
Exactly. And so, yeah, and then your body, it won't build muscle, and it continues to burn it up and store your fat because it thinks it's starving. Women cannot sustain on like 1,500 calories a day. That is just not, we're not meant to sustain on that amount. I mean, some itty bitty people are, but most of us are not, right?
That's so interesting. So are you comfortable saying like what the amount of calories that you have as like your maintenance amount?
Yeah, so we worked me up to about 2,200 calories from like 1,500. So that is that's like a whole nother meal and a snack.
Yeah.
Like, it's an insane amount of food. I was like, holy crap. Like, and we had to gradually work me up to that, right? It took 10 to 12 weeks just to like work up to maintenance phase and reverse diet. And then I stayed there long enough to kind of like get my body back in more of this like homeostasis, like happy metabolic place, because my metabolism then hadn't been working properly, right? We're at about 2,100 is about where my maintenance calories are. And so I have done a deficit phase since I started working with her, and we cut me back gradually to about 1,600 calories, but you don't want to stay there for longer than really 10 to 12 weeks tops, depending on how you're feeling. And so my coach asked me very specific question: how is your sleep? How is your stress? How is your appetite? Are you starving? Like, all these, they're biofeedback markers, right? And so if that all starts going wonky and off while you're on a deficit, it's probably time to come back out of that deficit. One of the things I didn't realize is how much stress inflames your body. When you're under really high volumes of stress, you're going to hold more water because you're more inflamed. So like, if you're trying to diet and you're super stressed out and now you're adding this other stress on, you're not dropping weight too, because you have all this stress and inflammation on your body too. So yeah, and the women I work with, I ask them, I'm like, have you tracked your food? Even just for a day. It's work, but just track your food for a day just to see where you're at and if you're getting enough protein. Most people are not. It's really, really important, especially if you're training for a race or going to the gym to lift weights. If you're not getting enough protein, your muscles do not have enough fuel to build and get stronger, right? And carbs are not the devil. Level P, carbs are not the devil. Like, our bodies need them. Please eat them.
Yeah.
It's crazy like what diet culture has done, and like where we are because of it. But there's this whole group of people that I follow now, and just to see what they're saying, and they're trying to turn the bus around. Like, okay, let's actually take care of our bodies, fuel our bodies properly. If you want to do a cut and lose some weight, go into it temporarily, have a plan, and then you get out of that, right? And go back into your maintenance phase. So, and you can lose weight that way. And that's a safer, healthier way to do it.
Than just like living in starvation all the time.
Yeah. Horrible. Like, right? You're tired. It messes up your hormones. It messes up your metabolism. How are you supposed to be able to perform at anything and live like that?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. This is so interesting.
Yeah, this really is.
Very relatable, for sure.
Yeah.
How much protein would you recommend, like, do you think most women need?
So I've read 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight.
Wow.
Which is quite a bit.
Yeah, I definitely am not getting enough.
Yeah. It's a lot of food.
I've been getting these weird TikToks lately where it's like these people they're doing like 30 grams of protein breakfast or something, and they're documenting their journey of how they're doing this, and they're like mixing cottage cheese with eggs and all this kind of stuff.
Cottage cheese is really having a moment right now.
Yeah, it really is.
Cottage cheese is not in my rotation at the moment. It was for a little while there, but I mean, I don't feel like what I eat in a day is, I don't have to do anything really crazy to get where I'm at in maintenance right now. So, I mean, I usually do use a protein powder. I use it once a day, not 4 protein shakes in a day to get there.
Wait. People are eating 4 protein
I have no idea. Probably to try. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, I had like 3 servings of protein to get to my protein amount.
Oh, my God.
I imagine there's probably some people who just mix their protein powder with water to get protein on as little calories as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Keep going. So one protein shake a day.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's just a really important point to make, particularly with the amount of women we're getting to. So
my husband is a little bit of a gym bro, and he's always trying to get me to go to the gym with him and lift weights to make me less injury prone. Like, he's always like, you're going to have less injuries. You're going to feel better if you do this. And he's always trying to get me to eat more protein. So he is going to be glad to hear these tips. Because I think I can sometimes be like, that's true for you because you're a weightlifting bro. It's different for me. But hearing it from you, I'm more willing to listen.
Yeah, because I mean, even if you're not strength training, it's still really important to have that amount of protein to support your muscles, right? Because if you're not getting it, then your muscles can't do what they're supposed to do.
So I have a weightlifting question. So I love lifting weights, but pretty much since the pandemic started, I've like switched all my workouts to be like at home, and then then the baby came, so I just haven't gone back to the gym. Like, I find time to work out at home, but it's thinking of fitting in the time to like go to the gym is like a little bit hard. Can you, like, I guess, what things would you need to buy to have in your house if you wanted to start weightlifting at home?
Yeah.
Is it even possible?
Yeah, it is possible. So if you want to see progress with weight training, a concept to understand is progressive overload. So you can't just go in and do 3 sets of 15 with light to moderate weights and expect to see like a lot of results. Yeah. Okay. There has to be some effort involved. Yeah. Like anything else. So a good set of either adjustable free weights, you can get the most bang for your buck with that, I would say. Okay. Because then you can adjust, they don't take up a lot of space, and you can adjust them to the weights they need. And they have different ones out now that go up to lower weights, so you don't need actually the huge set, right? You could actually get a smaller set too. Okay. And then they have some that'll come even with like a small barbell that you can use. So you can do a lot of different things. I've seen them on Amazon. That would definitely be the pieces of equipment I would suggest for that. I mentioned progressive overload, so I'll just talk about that real quickly. So what that is meaning is you're not just doing so many reps and sets. You have to work up to a certain amount of effort. So you're going to get the most bang for your buck and the most results if you're over time, so like 4 weeks. So 1 week I have 3 reps in reserve. So I'm working up doing 5 to 10 or 10 to 15 repetitions of something until I have 3 reps in my tank left. And so that week it's 3 reps in my tank left, right? And then the following week it's 2 reps in my tank, and then 1, and then 0. So I'm on a 4-week cycle of progressing my weights and reps in that range. Having a set program is really where you're going to get results over time, and you can change that after like 12 months if you're getting a little bored of what you're doing. You can swap some of those things out, right? But having a way to track that and have a plan versus just oh, that looks like a cool workout. I'm going to do that today. Or, oh, that's going to really kick my ass. I'm going to do that today. You know, you can't, doing that isn't going to really give you the results if you want to see strength and muscle definition over time. You know, I feel like now's a good time. I'm going to hit a little bit here. So HIIT training is a really big thing because people are like, it's efficient. I feel good. You get an endorphin rush, right? And I think HIIT has its place and it is great. I would not recommend HIIT for people that I've kind of been talking about that are really stressed out at the moment and they're not in a place to do that kind of intense training. I was doing some research on it just to see like, okay, what are the best time intervals to do HIIT training at, for how long, right? If you warm up properly, so if you're doing like a 10-minute warm up or so, and then maybe doing 15 to 20 minutes of HIIT is actually plenty. Like you don't need to do 45 to 60 minutes of HIIT training, because by the time you get to that point, even 30 minutes of HIIT training, your form is falling apart, right?
Yeah.
You should be able to go hard for like 60 seconds, take a 60-second rest. You want to be able to go hard. You don't want to have your form falling apart because then you're likely to get injured and you can't push as hard, right? You're supposed to be working at this higher level and you can't sustain that for those long periods of time. So I kind of just want to put that out there about it.
Yeah.
I hate HIIT, so you don't have to, you're in good company here.
I love HIIT. I have personal experience with this though, because one of the workout classes that I do is like every other song, like, so one song will be like a Pilates move, and then the next song will be like a HIIT move, and then the next one will be a Pilates move. So you go back and forth, and it's usually a 60-minute class. They have shorter ones, but I used to do the 60-minute class like 5 times a week. And that was when I was getting injured all the time.
Yeah.
Like my knees were having problems, my hips, like my ankle, like just every week it would be like a new thing that I needed to ice. And like this was like 2 years ago that I was doing this like a lot. And it was like around when we first met, and I was like, I remember talking to you about like my injuries, and you were telling me about like hypermobility and all of that stuff. But yeah, I have found that to be true for me, that when I was doing HIIT all the time, I got injured a lot more. And like since I've replaced some of my HIIT training with more pull and more like low intensity stuff, I've gotten way less injuries.
Exactly, because your body it needs time to recover. Like you cannot, I'm going to slam CrossFit for a second now. I feel like a lot of people go through like I did CrossFit for this amount of time, and then they're like, why did I do that? Like, so, I mean, and I coached, like I was in it for years, and people that could go in and do CrossFit workouts like that 5-6 days a week, like your body, even if you're changing muscle groups and things like that, your body's not getting that time to recover. And it also depends on what you're doing outside like of that work. So if you have a physical job, you already have that physical work on top of that, and your body's just not getting that time to repair. So CrossFit 3 times a week, if you're going to do it, is probably plenty, right? It's working out at that higher level of intensity. Mm-hmm. Your body needs time to recover, or it's going to catch up. Yeah. At some point, so people will be like, yeah, I'm doing it, I'm crushing it, and then like run into them like 3 months later, how's that working out for you? Yeah, I heard this, or I'm back to, I had to back off because our bodies are just not, unless you're like a professional athlete. Yeah, okay, good, they can do that. But your average person is not, it's not meant to do that. There are ways to do these higher intensity activities without injuring yourself. And so that's all I'm saying, is that you don't want to be overdoing it too much and not listening to your body. So if your body is telling you that is not recovering well, like you're overly fatigued, you're overly stressed out, like you're starving, or maybe you're not hungry at all and you're doing high level activities, your sleep is disrupted. These are all things to kind of look at and be like, am I experiencing any of these things, or am I really actually doing physically well? You have to almost time out for a minute and do a check-in with yourself to see how you're physically feeling, instead of just like, I'm a badass, I'm powering through. You're a badass regardless, but it doesn't make you more of a badass by powering through all those things if you're actually internally falling apart, because then it's just going to lead to injury in the long run. So it's just really being mindful of those things, and you don't have to do those things every day to see results. You can do those things less often than that and do active recovery. Walking is one of the best things you can do for your body, right? Like, especially during the day, if you're working, if you could get outside and take a walk, even if it's only 10-15 minutes. That's great. That's going to kind of reset you for the rest of your day, kind of clear your head a little bit instead of just, powering through working for lunch. I absolutely used to do that too. And now I'm finding if I can get outside and take a 10 or 15 minute break for a walk for lunch, it makes the afternoon so much better for me. So those are just some things to like check in with yourself about when you're finding yourself doing those higher intensity activities.
I have a selfish recovery question. Okay. I always talk about how my hip flexors are so messed up.
Oh my God, you need to check out her hip flexors and see if she's rotated, please.
It's usually one of them is really bad. But I do, and maybe because it's just me, but I get a lot of content on my TikTok about hip flexors, and it seems like a lot of other people have hip flexor issues too. Like, it's not just me. I know a lot of times just like sitting at a desk job all day.
Yeah.
Can you just talk to us about hip flexors for a second and tell us like what we should be doing?
What's going on with hip flexors?
Oh yeah. So it can be so many things, right? Because in reality, the body is all connected.
Yeah.
So just because your hip flexor is telling you there's a problem there, that doesn't actually mean that's the problem. So we know you've had a baby, so your pelvis could be off, and that changes the structure of things and how the muscles are working. So there could be other muscles that are then being restricted and not working properly, and the hip flexor is where it's being noticed.
Yeah.
Right? So it could be actually something coming from your back. The piriformis muscle in the butt is very close. It's a hip rotator. Is very closely related to the psoas too. So it could also actually be a problem there that is being reflected in your hip flexor or your psoas. So yeah, there's a lot of different possibilities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know that doesn't really answer.
No, we'll have to have a hip flexor
Well, that's
session.
why you have to go. That's why you have to go to a PT
Yeah,
and
like,
take
go
care of
get
it,
help.
right?
Yeah.
Like rather than self-diagnose. 'Cause
Yeah, I would say the one thing I'm going to say about hip flexor stuff is I see videos and, they talk about, because the hip flexor actually goes up and attaches to your lumbar spine. So not everybody realizes there's this and we're talking about psoas when we're talking about hip flexor specifically is what I'm talking about. That goes up and attaches to your lumbar spine. So it starts in the back and then it runs forwards. Mm-hmm. So sometimes people don't realize that impact of this upper part of the psoas attaching to your lumbar spine. We kind of disregard or maybe forget that that's there that way. And so that can also cause kind of dysfunction from that higher part of it. So where I was going with that is sometimes you see videos or techniques for stick a ball in here, smash a ball in here. I would never tell a person just to watch a video and then stick something into your abdomen and pray that you're hitting the psoas. I think they need to be able to feel it from you. Here is your psoas. This is what this feels like. Okay, now you can use this tool to do that. I do not recommend just watching a video and being okay.
Now go lay on a tennis ball.
Yeah, and stick it as far into your abdomen as you can, right? I do not advise that. Oh, maybe that's your colon, maybe it's your psoas. We don't really know because we don't know what that feels like.
So smart. What about these people out here that are talking about how it's stop stretching your hip flexors and start strengthening them?
Oh, yes. So, yeah, this is a whole thing. So, where I'm going to start with the hip flexor relationship, most people do have tight hip flexors. Mm-hmm. So, I want to talk about hip flexor and glute relationship. So, they're opposite. They're antagonistic to each other, okay? So, if your hip flexors are tight, you cannot strengthen your glutes and get your glutes to fire properly.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Right? So if you're going to strengthen your glutes, you have to make sure that your hip flexors, you're stretching them and they're at a length to allow your glutes to fire properly. So just because somebody has glutes doesn't mean they work, because they could have tight hips and now their glutes can't fire properly. So one of the most common causes of back pain is tight hip flexors, glutes don't work properly, back pain.
So your back is overcompensating
Yes,
for your glutes.
Your glutes not working properly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm not opposed to strengthening hip flexors. I think they do need strengthened too. I'm on board with that, but I also think you have to really look at the hip flexor and glute relationship and make sure glutes are firing properly and the hip flexors at a proper length. I took a class in January that kind of blew my mind a little bit, and one of the things that we talked about was if you're looking to improve the health of a muscle, you want to do more eccentric type strengthening. So concentric is when you're shortening the muscle, right? Like, so you do a bicep curl. So the eccentric would then be the slow lowering of the weight, like a 5-second. Okay. So if you're doing eccentric strengthening, that actually improves the health of the muscle. So what I would say is if you're having a hip flexor thing, making sure they're the right length, your glutes are working. And then if you still need some health in your muscle there, doing like 3 to 5 reps of eccentric strengthening is what's going to improve the health in that muscle.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Wow. So, you know us, you know our issues, you know about Anna's hip flexors, you know about my joints and being overly mobile. We have a lot of photographers that listen to us. Do you have like sort of, I guess not general advice, but like from spending time with us and sort of seeing how we work, thoughts about like things photographers should be doing differently?
Yeah, because we're hunched over all the time.
Yeah.
We're in the weirdest positions. And then, well, specific to us, but it's like, because we do all the poses too. It's like, that's also another part of our job.
And then you're also at a desk all the time when you're editing.
Right.
So it's like the worst of both worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the position you guys get yourselves in when you are photographing. Like, it is insanity. Like, I'm like, how are you contorted like that? Hanging out the window. Like, hold my feet.
Yeah.
Like, you
Literally.
need really good core strength for that.
Yeah.
Which I would say we do have. So we have that going for us.
Yes. I would say if you're able to, I know it's not always ideal and it's probably more a pain than it's worth. Sometimes using tripods can help, right? Because you can have a tripod in a position that puts you in a better position instead of like, being all bent and then hunched over.
Well, and using the same arm always to hold the camera.
Yeah.
Like really.
Right, exactly. So you're trying to be as versatile as you can with your positions changing up. So don't always lean to the right, like lean to the left too, right? Or, like you just said, use your other hand for some things when you're able to, as opposed to always using the same hand. And I would say because you're sitting at a desk and editing, and then you're also doing the movement and the contortions and things, doing more like dynamic type stretching and movements for you guys is probably the best strategy, because of having to have those other ranges of motion to get into when you're taking pictures. Mm-hmm. So, and then also doing the poses too, right? You having that range of motion, like to demonstrate, we want you to get in this position. So you need to have that range of motion to do that too. So actually for you guys, a combination of dynamic stretching and static stretching too. So another fun fact, dynamic stretching typically works better for those under 25, but here's the caveat. It is also better to do more dynamic stretching before you work out. So when I say dynamic stretching, you're only in the stretch, you're going in and out of the stretch. Like maybe you're only in the stretch for 5 seconds, come out, go back into the stretch for 5 seconds, versus like hold the stretch for 30 seconds. So you guys are kind of needing to do a little bit of both of that so that you can hit those various range of motions, and then even stretching in those specific positions that you find yourselves in a lot of, right? Bent, twisted type.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
That is interesting.
That's really good. That's good advice.
Yeah. Okay, and then, so I guess just a little sidetrack, but speaking of like bent, twisted, you've done a few boudoir shoots, as we talked about, and we have a lot of clients that come in and they always talk about like, what are things I can do to prep for like arching better, or just like doing certain things to support their bodies before they come in for the shoot so they can do some of these poses. Do you have some
like
tips
better
for that?
mobility for arching and those kinds of things? Yeah.
So, I mean, it depends on how far in advance they book. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you can guarantee an improvement in a noticeably big improvement in mobility, like with only 6 to 8 weeks of working on it, right? Like, this has to be part of the routine. Like, maybe if you were booked a few months in advance. So yeah, you can do your stretching and you can, do all of that and get that as part of your routine. But truthfully, like, stretching like for the week before you come in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I would say, make sure you're hydrated, drink enough water. Like, your muscles need that fluid to be elastic, right? So making sure you do drink enough water. I know a lot of people don't drink enough water either. So that's one thing you can do like off the bat that's going to help a lot. But stretching is going to take a practice and doing it on a fairly regular basis, which we all should really be doing, right? Like, we should all have some sort of mobility stretching routine because we're all in bad postures because of technology and things like that.
What are a few good stretches we should be doing besides the like laying on our back on the foam roller one?
Yeah, so the easiest way is to kind of show you, and I can describe it as I'm showing you.
Okay.
So, you can prop your foot up and then rotate your foot out, and you can go, so I'm getting my groin, and then you can like turn your hip, and you can get all the groin muscles attaching up here depending on how your hips rotated. So out further, it's getting in more here, you can go middle, and then you can go here. So a decent hamstring stretch, you can come into it, just work into it this way, sticking your hips back. You need the hamstring mobility, right? Because that attaches to your pelvis. So if you have tight hamstrings, your back isn't going to be as mobile. So hamstring mobility, groin or adductor mobility is really important. So one of get your hip capsule and your hip flexors that I like to do is in like a half kneel position. And this is what I was kind of talking about with getting that hip flexor stretch, but also getting the glute contraction, is pushing that bottom hip forward, keeping your torso upright, and then squeezing your glute for 8 seconds, and you get a stretch across the front, and you get the glute activation. So it's really nice because it's almost like a 2-for-1. You're getting the hip and the glutes. So those are 3 really good ones. And you guys have kind of done this too, where you come down on your knees and then like start to go back, so you're trying to open your hips.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Can you do that one even if you're not going all the way back?
You can. So
Okay.
I would suggest either having like a sofa or something that you can like lean on and prop yourself on, because I don't have the flexibility to do that either.
Okay.
Getting almost in like that split type position.
Melissa has one leg straight right now and one leg bent sitting on the ground.
Yeah.
And then, working forward, and then also you can lean back that way too, and get all of this. So you could always like lean back on an ottoman or a sofa if you need some of that support, but just getting to the point where you get that stretch.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, this is amazing.
Yeah, this is so helpful.
Yeah. What about for like the back and neck area too, like, or upper body? Sorry, I know you didn't expect to work out too early.
So my favorite neck stretch to do is it's stretching the levator muscles. So it's really important because the opposite muscle to that is the low trap, which stabilizes the shoulder blade. So if your neck muscle here, the levator, is tight, which attaches to your shoulder blade, your low trap isn't in a good position to stabilize your shoulder.
Is that the muscle that hurts on you?
So on me, it's like this meaty part of the trap right here, and then it's like right on my shoulder, like the wing
down.
part.
Yeah. So it attaches more up towards the corner. But what you do is you grab the back corner of a chair, and then with your right hand, and then you would drop your chin to the left armpit to try and stretch the right levator, and then you can kind of lean away to get a little bit of a better stretch with that. So that's how I recommend people stretch the levator, specifically in people who work at their desks and things like that. So
Okay.
yeah,
This is incredible.
This is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we just went to med school.
Melissa's like, do not start treating people.
You created a monster.
2 monsters.
Okay, before we move on to obsessions, I want to ask a question, because I know the posse loves when we talk about all things sex.
Yes.
Could you give us some tips on things you can do to improve your sex life? Like specifically, I'm thinking like potentially pelvic floor stuff. I know a lot of women have like pain with sex, so I don't know.
If you're having pain with sex, definitely see a pelvic floor specialist. I mean, their knowledge, and they don't always work internally. Some of them do and some of them don't. So, sometimes they can be more conservative and work externally, like outside the vagina. And sometimes they do internal in the vagina or in the anus if there's, things they need to get to from those angles. The work that I do more mechanical adjustments and only external work. So sometimes I can help with those things, but it often works really well hand in hand with a pelvic floor specialist that does that specific type of work. But yeah, sex is not fun if it hurts. So yeah, go see them. They're a wealth of knowledge. They are not awkward. They just, they practice, they know what they're doing.
I saw one after my baby, and she was amazing. Not awkward at all. It was so helpful. And I was just like awed every time I went there, like the wealth of knowledge she had.
Yeah. And I think it's not nearly, I don't want to say it used to be taboo, but it wasn't. People would be like, oh, I have to go to pelvic floor floor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I feel like it's becoming actually a lot more like, I have this problem, I need this taken care of. Who do I need to see for this, right? I have a client that they were wanting her to actually have surgery to get her pelvic floor fixed. And she was like, can I try pelvic floor PT first? And they were like, well, I guess we can try that. They didn't really think she would be successful. And she was.
Wow.
You know, so sometimes like advocating for yourself, that's one thing I would really strongly suggest, advocating for yourself and doing your own research, especially if somebody's advising like something really invasive and you have a gut feeling or that's not something you want to do. Try the conservative route first. What do you have to lose, right? By doing that, okay, if you try this and it doesn't work, okay, then maybe that's another option, right? Or maybe you get a second opinion and see somebody else. Because everybody's knowledge is not the same and people can do things very differently, right? So it could just be somebody's experience level or, you know, or somebody wasn't trained in that. So I think it's just really like doing your research and advocating for yourself when it comes to things like that.
And then what if you don't have pain? If you're just like, you know, one of our regular Peach Posse members who's, you know, we've got a lot of sex crazed fiends out there listening to us. Yeah. What are things they can do?
Use the toys, man. I think there's a whole episode on that, but just use the toys.
Does working on your pelvic floor, even if you don't have pain, does that help like during sex? Like just how?
Yeah, do you have better orgasms if you have a better pelvic floor?
I don't necessarily know that for sure.
Okay.
So I can't 100% answer that confidently, but I would imagine if you're having more sex and having more orgasms, you're likely going to have a strong pelvic floor anyways.
Okay, so have more sex.
That's the answer. Have more sex and more orgasms, and
use the toys.
Yeah, use the toys. That's my answer.
All right, there you go, posse.
I love that.
Just keep fucking. Well, with that, should we go into our obsession?
Yeah.
All right, so I can go first.
Okay.
My obsession this week is, Anna, you're gonna love this. It's from Wishbone Kitchen.
Oh my god.
One of our favorite TikTok chefs.
One time she commented on one of my TikToks and it was the highlight of my week.
That was a big moment.
It was a really big moment.
You are famous now.
I mean, one can only hope.
She's this amazing like private chef. She like works for a fashion designer and like lives at his home in the Hamptons in the summer. But she like posts TikToks of recipes she makes and she has a blog. And last week I decided to have a cute little farmer's market moment and I wanted to make like a seasonal spring pasta. I love a spring or summer pasta recipe with like lots of herbs and stuff in it. And she has a recipe for green garlic ditalini pasta. And it is with this like pesto, like this really garlicky pesto. So that's what I made and it is so good and it makes a fuck ton of food for like not that much money. Like we had a ton of leftovers. You guys are welcome to try some after this if you want.
Yeah.
It's so good and I just am thinking right now about how excited I am to eat it for lunch.
I want this recipe ASAP.
Yeah,
That
I will
sounds
share the
amazing.
recipe. I did make some modifications because one of the main things is green garlic, which they didn't actually have at the farmer's market because it's supposed to be spring, but it's still basically fucking winter here.
Yeah, it's the depths of winter in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. So they didn't have green garlic, so I just used regular garlic. I also added in peas for some more protein and like veggies. And then the pesto has pine nuts, and I absolutely hate pine nuts, so I didn't include them. So those are my modifications, but I will share the recipe with the posse. It's so good. I am addicted to this spring pasta. It has all the like herby flavors you could ever want. It's got like lemon zest in it. It's so good. And it's like very comforting. So that's my obsession this week.
It's amazing. Do you want to do yours?
Yeah, I'll go. So I've recently tried mushroom coffee.
Oh, tell us more.
Yeah, so because I love coffee and I drink a lot of coffee. I was like, I should probably not try not to drink this much coffee. So I'm gonna try.
How much coffee do you have in one day? How many cups?
I would say normally. So I think it's like. Like 24 ounces, I would say.
Okay.
About, which seems like a lot.
Yeah.
It seems a bit excessive. And I was also like having a little bit of increased anxiety, and I was like, maybe I should go back on the caffeine. Oh, so sad.
So hard.
So sad. So I tried this mushroom coffee because it's supposed to help with like clarity and focus, and also have like energy, and I think it's supposed to help with inflammation too. It's not so bad. I mean, I'm into it. If I use a little bit of creamer with it, I'm down with it.
Does it taste like mushrooms?
No.
It tastes kind of like cacao.
Some of it's a little bit cacao and coffee, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a little bit of the combination of the two.
Which brand are you using?
I'm using Ryze, RYZE,
Okay.
I believe, and I actually like it.
Yeah, I haven't tried that one. I've tried the Four Sigmatic, the like lion's mane one, which I think is the one that's supposed to like give you focus.
Yeah.
And I used to buy it every once in a while, and then if I had like an important meeting or something, I would drink it that day, and I feel like it helped.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's very up your alley. It's
Yeah.
very like healthier version of caffeine.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't drink coffee really, but
Yeah, I like recently will drink it sometimes, but I'm definitely more of a tea drinker. But I like the flavor of coffee. Like I love the way it tastes.
Yeah.
Mine's also a recipe this week.
Wow.
Yeah, so because the baby turned 1, I got really into baking a birthday cake for her, and I was like Googling all these like healthy baby's first birthday like cakes that like don't have sugar and like are sweetened with like other things. So the first one I tried, a lot of them have like bananas and things like that in them. And the first one was like okay. It tasted more like a really healthy banana bread almost, but it wasn't bad. And she was like into it. And then yesterday I tried another one that was you like basically take bananas and another fruit. So I just used pears, and you make this like fruit puree, and then you're using that to sweeten it. And then there's like flour, a little bit of milk, like a few other things in it. I did make a frosting that I did put some sugar into, but that was like pretty much most of it. Anyway, this cake actually tasted pretty good. Like I will say it was a little too dense, like I like a fluffier. I'm not really a cake person. I like, of all the desserts, cake is the last thing I will ever want to eat. Like
Wow.
I like
Okay.
ice cream pie, like any of those cookies. I would take over a cake any day.
What
However,
about buttercream frosting?
Right?
I
Give
hate
me
frosting.
all the freaking frosting.
I will sit there and eat buttercream frosting by itself all day long.
I should have brought you a piece because the frosting was actually really good. Like I whipped like heavy cream with cocoa powder and sugar last night, and it was pretty good. And
Yeah,
I
you
hate
should have
frosting.
brought me a
I'm so
piece.
sorry. I'm so sorry. But it was amazing. It actually tasted really good. She was like, at first didn't quite know what to do with it, and then was like literally double fisting, like had 2 chunks of it and was just like gnawing it. Like it was really intense.
I love that for her.
Yeah. We had to like pull out our mouth at one point because we were like, you need to like chew the part that's in your mouth before you like suck this whole other part in.
What an icon.
Yeah.
Melissa, can you tell the posse where to find you?
Yes. So my website is still being worked on, but it's going to be balancedbodymanualtherapy.com. That's the name of my practice. And then I am on Instagram. It's Mel_Vidoni, Vidoni. And those are the 2 main places to find me right now. So
And are you accepting new patients?
I am.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on today. This was honestly so helpful. We definitely need to do a second part at some point because we have 1,000 questions on our list that we didn't get answered. And
Yeah, we have so many more things to talk about.
Yeah.
And I feel like the posse is going to have a lot of questions after
I would
this,
love
too.
to. I would love to.
We could talk about this all day.
Yeah.
You're so interesting.
Thank you.
And then you can find us at Naked Peach Boudoir on everything.
Yes, and you can find our podcast on peach.posse on Instagram and Peach Posse on TikTok. We have been posting some fun things on the Peach Posse Instagram. I'm excited about some of the content we have coming for you guys, so definitely follow us there. It's small but mighty.
It's just a fun spot for the pod.
Yeah, it's just a fun place for us to hang out and like share our inside jokes from the pod together. You can find me at tsmiles with a Z on all the socials.
And you can find me at Anna McLaughlin Photo.
And we'll see you next Tuesday.
Bye.
Bye.